Hello everybody. Today we're at the San Antonio Museum of Technology, and it's located here at the old Kelly Air Force Base. All this used to be the Air Force Base here years ago, and it was turned over to the city, and now there are certain private businesses and contractors and whatnot, but this particular building here is the Museum of Science and Technology. So let's go inside and see what it's like.
So Spheros are little interactive robots. Let me just get out of here really quickly. So, quick question: do either of you two know like what a robot is? Like, can you guys like define it?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a good example. So your AC is a robot. So what does your AC do?
Our AC. Oh.
Yeah, like your air conditioner.
It's like I don't know how to say it in American.
It's a quiz, girls.
Stop recording.
It cools the air, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can set your AC, right? So like, let's say like, I set my AC to, 73, right? Okay, what happens when it's too warm in the house? What does the AC do?
It cools it down.
Cools it down, right? And then when it's like the right temperature, what does the AC do then?
It stops.
It stops, it turns off, right? So that's basically what a robot is. Your AC is the perfect example because a robot is, in the big fancy definition, a robot is a Spheros. Well, let's go ahead and do this first. So, I have a Sphero, and it's a sphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how many degrees are like in a circle?
I'm trying to remember. Sorry.
Right.
360.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's 360, right?
Oh, that's right.
So the Sphero operates in terms of 360 degrees. Basically, 0 degrees is straight, 180 is back, like 90 is to the right. And now, well, it's going to go forward, but now it's going to go backwards. So what it did was topography is.
No.
I'll give you a hint. It has to do with top, right? So topography. So with that in mind, what do you think this is showing?
It moves the same.
Well, what do you think? So topography.
Just like the top of this tile.
Yeah, so it's like height, right?
Oh. Okay.
So when we talk about topography, what we're really talking about is like elevation. So here, this is a really high elevation, like a mountain, right? You can see like the little snow cap, all right? Do we have mountains here in San Antonio?
No.
No. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the topography ever so drastically. And as you can see, I'm smoothing things out. And we're gonna create hills. Because here in San Antonio, are you guys from here, San Antonio?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we have here are hills, right? Because we're called the hill country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making some hills real quick. Dynamo or whatever. We've actually had this in the museum for a really, really long time. But unfortunately,
It says what it is down here, but recording, recording and alarm compass built by, so I don't, some geographical type instrument.
Yeah, so a lot of these are really, really old. I know that, so this one actually is John P. Cushing's. But Milo is actually the one who knows a lot about these.
Yeah.
My specialty is with like the toys and stuff.
Yeah, I think it makes prints something out. Like
It does. It actually is for navigation. So you can actually use it like a...
I wing this every time. I don't have a script yet, so bear with me. But I always like to start here because it's a museum about science and technology, right? And one of our earliest inventions in this museum is the Edison light bulb. So these are all actually Edison's light bulbs that he handmade while he was trying to figure out a light bulb that was reliable and lasted long enough and was affordable, and balancing all of these trade-offs and restrictions and expenses to try to find the Goldilocks zone for the light bulb, so to speak. This is actually our rarest one, and I think it's coolest because that's actually a burnt porcelain as the filament. So obviously a lot of these didn't work very well, right? And eventually they figured out that a metal called tungsten worked really well for the wire, the filament inside the light bulb. Edison started a company called Mazda Electric that became General Electric, and they still make something like 90% of the light bulbs in the US today. That was called alternating current. So it went back and forth really, really fast. Ours goes back and forth 60 times per second in the US. And was still with these radios, as you can see, they're huge. They weren't small enough to be everywhere yet, and they were definitely very expensive, especially because of those things called vacuum tubes. Those little light bulb looking things were essentially used in the amplification of radio signals, either whether that was wall receiving or now where we have streaming services and MP3 players and all of this modern technology relating to music. We had the gramophone. Y'all can give it a little and did essentially the same thing as the first Mac. So Apple's got really good lawyers and really good PR, which is the main reason why we don't get the credit for it. But David worked at a company called Data Point here in San Antonio in 1969, and they created the first desktop personal computer. These are 2 of 4 of the engineering prototype models, and they were found in the back of a dumpster, funny enough. But these were really the first computing machine that could fit on your desktop, because up until then they had only had what you'll see on this side called dummy terminals that look like computers, but they're just keyboards and monitors. Those would be hooked into a really, really slow machine in the basement of your building called a mainframe. So you'd be sharing. This is one of my projects, it's still ongoing, but essentially all of these maps here and on these computers are showing visualizations of live data about cyber attacks going on in real time around the world. So when you see a little streak going across one of these, that's a high value or high volume cyber attack going on in real time. So this is built, used, and touched by Nazis Enigma machine from World War II. This is an earlier model. It has 4 rotors for encrypting instead of 8. And so essentially the way this machine would work is that it's a little more complicated than this, but essentially code would... It's going to be a little loud, you might jump, but don't worry about it. Just don't reach that light bulb very far out. And I want y'all to pay attention to the light bulb. What happens to the light bulb? I'm going to give y'all a countdown. 3, 2, 1... Light bulb's lit up, right? So Tesla was onto something, but as you'll notice, if I turn the coil on the right, only his bulb is lighting up. So there's all this danger in so little range, right?
Well, we just got out of the Science Technology Museum here in San Antonio, so we didn't know this place existed, and it's a very small museum right now, but they're building a whole new section, and we're going to go drive by it here in a little bit. But there's a lot to see in a short period of time, and the people there are all volunteers and they're educators. They have a summer school program and other stuff like that. We didn't even know that this existed. Funny thing is, this is part of the Air Force. This was Kelly Air Force Base, and I work at Lackland Air Force Base, and I didn't know that this thing existed here. But the Kelly, you recognize that building. But let's go drive by the new facility that's being constructed. It's we saw some pictures of it and a video of it, and it's really neat. It's going to have its own hydration system where it grabs water out of the air and converts it into water. And so let's get in a car and drive over there. Okay, so this is the project quite large. This side over here is going to be like a convention center. There's going to be like a snack bar and beverages and stuff, and then this side over here is going to be the museum. The way he explained it, this is going to be where the new exhibits and the new technology is going to be. And the building that we were in was for the old technology. My understanding, that side of the building is supposed to be open in March of 2022. So not too far in the future.